loving salutations at the lotus feet of our Lord. There is a very interesting Chinnakatha or a small parable that Swami gives, and this story is about a zamindar, a landlord who lived in India many years back. This landlord had the habit of performing a very important puja or a worship or a ritual called Satyanarayana Vratam. And this he used to perform every month on the full moon day. And during this time, it so happened that he also had a pet cat. He was very fond of this cat, and then the cat had a free entry to move about in the palace. And this pet cat used to come and then sniff things, items of the worship, and then this was not allowed, of course, by the priests. Therefore, during that one day when the Satyanarayana Vratam used to happen every month, during those few hours, he used to put the cat in a basket and then put it there. So this tradition continued. As the time passed, the zamindar passed away, and his children, his sons, continued the tradition of the monthly Satyanarayana Vratam in the palace. And they used to make a checklist of items to be procured and then for this puja. And they had grown up observing that the father always had a cat which he used to put under a basket on this particular day. So they also purchased a cat, because at that time, unfortunately, they did not have the cat anymore. And they purchased a cat. They used to purchase a cat and then put a basket. They also purchased a basket. And this tradition also continued for a long time. Swami used to tell this story as a Chinnakatha, and he used to conclude that we sometimes get so much lost in the rituals that we don't understand why we are doing something. So the concept of understanding why we are doing anything, particularly in the path of spirituality, is what can be termed as the spiritual behind the ritual. So, dear brothers and sisters, today's program can be titled The Spiritual Behind the Ritual. And I'm Kota Shiv Kumar. I'm an alumnus from Swami's Institute from Prasanthi Nilayam. And with me here is Prashant Durgam.
My name is Prashant Durgam, and I am in Swami's fold for the past 16 years. And Swami has given me an opportunity to facilitate learning programs which are conducted by the youth group, especially for the unemployed youth. So this is a little about me.
Wonderful. As we start this program, I wanted to first set out a little the difference, the essential differences between what we call ritual and what is spiritual, right? So some thoughts that came up in our mind as we were discussing. The first one is that we felt that ritual is easily understood, whereas spiritual is rarely understood. And what I mean by making this statement, when I make this statement, is that a ritual often happens to be very tangible, like putting a garland on Swami's photograph or anything like that. So it is easily understood even by someone who's a boy, a child maybe. But the spiritual aspect is often, it requires a level of understanding to get the insight. So it is rarely understood. So whatever looks a little complicated to understand is usually left out in our lives. And then tangible is more often caught up. So that is one difference. But as we discuss further, we might get a little more into this. The other difference I see, Prashant, is that ritual is more doing based and spirituality is more being based, if I can put it like that. Doing and being based. And as we also all know, doing is all about action. We're all always asking the question, what to do next? We start our days with our to-do list, and then we go about all along the day. And our performance and then success in this world, we believe, depends upon doing. Whereas spirituality, as elders say and as Swami says, is often based on being. And interestingly, somebody said we are called human beings and not human doings. So that's an interesting way of putting it. The other difference we thought is that rituals take time, whereas spiritual sanctifies the time. Now this is an interesting thing. If you look at an average vratam, puja, homam, worship at home, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. For example, if we want to do abhishekam to the Lord Shiva, and which we call the Rudrabhishekam, even if we do what is called the Mahanyasam before that, it ends up taking about 2 hours for even if we do the Abhishekam once. Now it is done 11 times and so on. So for every worship, every ritual, there is a certain time. Not just that, if we consider the daily tasks and chores in our life as rituals, even everything has a definite time. So there's a start time, there's a process, there's an end time. So that's what makes it interesting and boring and then difficult also sometimes. The spiritual aspect of sanctifying time is, in spirituality, since we are looking for the essence of what we are doing, it tends to inspire us in such a way that whatever we are doing, as we are going through the process, in the time gets sanctified. At the end of it, what is sanctification of time? At the end of spending that time, we all would feel that the time was well spent. There's a sense of nobility that comes up in us. There's a sense of inspiration. So this is what we experience in anything that is spiritual. And we felt as a fourth difference that rituals usually go towards an accomplishment. They try to get us a sense of accomplishment. Whereas the spiritual, it starts off from a sense of accomplishment. That might sound like a little weird definition, if I may put it so. But when we look at it, for every ritual, there is an end point. There is a goal, usually. And therefore, rituals are often driven towards that end point. Yes, there might be a good feeling at the end of it that I've completed it. There might be a lot of tiredness about it, but usually we also feel good that you have completed it. It could be even a bhajan, or it could be even an Agar Sankirtan, or it could be a Akhand bhajan. I completed it. I stayed there for about 24 hours and I could stay there and complete it. That's an accomplishment, right? So there's a sense of accomplishment in every ritual. But in spiritual, the same Akhand bhajan, the same bhajan, even if for one bhajan, the person is so involved and then could connect with Swami, then they're starting that entire activity with a sense of accomplishment, is what I feel. That's where it becomes spiritual. And the last difference, as we feel, is that ritual becomes automatic, whereas spirituality rests in awareness. We all know this pretty much, and we know what is automatic. Whatever is rigmarole, and then whatever is very difficult to repeat again and again and again, it becomes automatic. Like brushing teeth, for example, is the easiest example that we can take along the day, and it becomes automatic. We hardly think about it. We hardly try to get quality into that by excelling in brushing, etc. It just happens. It is required and it has to be done. So that is what we mean by automatic. But what is awareness? What is doing something in awareness? Spirituality starts where I become aware, being here and now, being present-minded, being fully focused on what we are doing. And therefore, there's a great inspiration, there's a presence of Swami. And Swami says, Sarva Karma Bhagavat Prityardham. What he's saying is that you tend to dedicate every action to Swami only when you are with it all the while. So these we felt are the essential differences. And then Prashant, is this something that you want to say at this stage?
Very interesting differences. I can really relate to it. In fact, I'm a little curious. I just wanted to ask you something. For that, I have to share one of those experiences which I had a long time ago. Mm-hmm. You can call it as a ritual because this was before my marriage, and we were a group of friends, very close friends, born and raised together. Mm-hmm. So we made a decision that every year we should visit Tirumala. And it used to happen year on year. And there was one interesting incident which happened there. We went and had a wonderful darshan. And post-darshan, we were in bliss. We were feeling great about the kind of darshan we had. And we just were coming out of the, sanctum sanctorum. And I was looking at people around. They were all blissful, happy, cheering. And there was something which we noticed. That was probably a time, maybe during a festival time, or I'm not too sure whether it was Vaikunta Ekadasi or not. But, it was festivities around, and they did a lot of flower decoration. And there was this a thing which holds the flowers. They do that decoration,
Right.
the green color,
Green color one.
thermocolor kind of thing.
Yes, yes.
So it was there, and it got little spoiled, and we were wondering what it was, and we picked out and started trying to check what exactly the material was. Me and my friend were just wondering. Suddenly, there was a lady who looked at us because we touched it and we were looking at closely. Probably she thought it's kumkum,
Okay.
and she took that and put it on her forehead. In no time, we saw a group of people doing the same. And for a moment, we saw at each other and said, "What did we do?" And we rushed out of the sanctorum and we started, talking about that incident. But when I started contemplating, brother, the question is, I know what the material was. Definitely, it was not a vibhuti, it was not a kumkum, but that lady would joyfully put it on her forehead.
Right.
So maybe, I was wondering, is it the right thing to do? Without being aware, why did she do that? Did she just follow someone who was there? Probably I felt maybe, I'm not bothered about what she put on her forehead, but I felt because it was in the sanctum, in the vicinity of the temple, she didn't bother about what it was, and she probably put it on her forehead.
Absolutely.
So the question is, in the context of belief or faith, when people tend to do these kind of activities, now the question is it the right thing to do? Or should we be aware and say, oh, probably this is not the right thing to put on the forehead and just avoid? Or should we actually look at the experience and innocence of that lady or the people who are putting that particular thing on her forehead and say, hey, what a kind of love they have towards,
Yes.
Swami?
Yes.
So a few thoughts there from your side. What do you think?
Absolutely, brother. In fact, we have had wonderful stories from the Puranas and then from even the contemporary world. In fact, what I was somewhere I read about this, that in Africa there was a boy who happened to hear a lot from the native stories there, that if your leg happens to touch a particular kind of stone, you're going to die. And this happened very recently. This was a 17-18-year-old boy, and it so happened one day he touched it. He comes home and tells his mom, I think something is going to happen. I'm going to pass away. This mother says, no, nothing like that. Just to give him a little more confidence, she takes him to the pastor, the local pastor in the church. And the pastor tries to talk to him and then says, no, nothing will happen to you, all these things, And then he comes back, and within 24 hours, the boy died. And a psychologist explains this like this, that actually it's not the stone that killed the boy, but he himself killed. His mind killed him. The very strange incident. Now, our Puranas talk about, for example, a very great devotee whom we end up calling Kannappa, but actually his name was Tinnadu. He was one of those forest dwellers who hardly knew anything about devotion or whatever. He was just used to kill animals, and it so happened it's a turn of destiny that he happens to fall in love with Lord Shiva. And he gets into that devotional aspect, and whatever he does with so much of devotion that he starts offering the meat that he procures because of killing animals to the Lord, and so many things he does. And it goes on that Shiva wanted to test him, and he starts actually pouring out tears from one of the eyes which were there on the lingam, and then some blood too. And then this guy tends to put his foot on one of those eyes and then plucks out his eye to keep on that. So now in this particular thing, somebody can look at this particular point that he has put his foot on the lingam. Okay, and the Kannappa's feeling when he did it was completely supporting his belief. Whereas many others who try to probably again put their foot on the lingam, it won't support that. So what Swami tells very clearly is that it seems Swami asked a very funny question. It seems somebody said that everybody is my brother and sister in a spiritual sense, somebody said. So it seems Swami once pointed to his wife and said, what about her? No. Then he could not answer anything. So Swami says there is when you still haven't lost the idea or the sense that she is my wife, for example, you are probably not in a position to say that everybody is my sister, in a true sense. So a ritual is supported by the belief, and belief itself is supported by the feeling we have, is what I feel as an answer for that, Prashant.
Interesting, brother. Few things coming to my mind, especially there are certain wonderful things we do, like offering flowers to Swami. Some people actually do fasting and, singing bhajans regularly, weekly or daily. Often, sometimes, these wonderful things can also become rituals.
True.
I have a question on especially, fasting. How does it help one's spiritual sadhana? If you can elaborate and share your thoughts there.
Yeah, brother. In fact, fasting is something that can become a ritual, as you said. It is a ritual in most of our traditions when we look at it. There have been various instances among Swami devotees. And if you find instances in books like The Loving God, written by Professor Kasturi, or even Sathya Sai Speaks, you'll find mention from Swami about how we should look at fasting. In fact, very interestingly, in Telugu language which Swami spoke, fasting, we call it upavasam. And Swami used to give the technical meaning of upavasam. Upa means closer in Sanskrit, and vasam means to stay. So actually upavasam means just to stay closer. In other words, it means to connect or come closer to Swami. So probably when this was started, upavasam was started, it was a very good attempt to try and then ensure that the mind is not distracted or tempted towards fleeting things or temporary things. And then people gradually develop the willpower to stay connected to Swami, which is a very, very, very essential thing for all of us. And in fact, Swami suggested that or prescribed that to us at least one night and one day during Shivaratri. However, Swami most usually discouraged upavasam for most of us. And we should understand with a little bit of caveat here that all of us are different on the path of spirituality. And one should take up a path that is most suitable for them according to Swami's injunctions. And if we try to ape somebody else, or if we try to follow something because it is the most suggested norm, it can sometimes backfire, or it can lead us to unnecessary aspects. However, whatever we are speaking right now should not be taken as a general equation, because there are certain faiths in this world where, for example, fasting is done at a stretch by everyone, children, old age people, etc. It is suggested by them. And I think they are all able to do it perhaps, and then they are able to take it up. It is okay. So if there is hopefully it's not a dogmatic faith, but if there is a faith and if there is a belief that has been running in a particular stream of life, and you are okay to do that without any loss of attention, without any loss of connect to Swami, it still is okay, I feel. But in general, Swami says that what is most important is that instead of fasting, focus a little more on not overeating when you do sit for bhajan. Instead of sitting for the bhajan and then thinking of what I would eat next, it is always better that you have what you want, sit and then focus on Swami. So Swami's teaching is very practical when we look at it, because most of us are not jitendriyas, in the sense that we have not come over our sense perception, sense organs, and then our cravings. And we are in the process. With Swami's grace, it should all happen. And in the process, this is the most important time where it is precarious. It can be precarious. Overdoing anything or getting into fastidious stuff can cause a little problem. So there were certain devotees' experiences, which I might not be able to quote here completely right now, where people ended up fasting, and Swami came to them midway, and then he himself offered them something to eat. And then he said, "No problem, go ahead." However, there were some people who were very particular about their fasting. Swami did not disturb them too. And we all know about this famous story of how Swami rewards even those people who do any kind of penance, small or big. So fasting is not a bad thing at all from that sense, provided we take care of it. This is from Sai Satcharitra, Shirdi Baba. There was one boy who wanted to actually have one of his goals accomplished, and he said, if in order to accomplish that, the vow he takes is that he's not going to have sugar in whatever coffee or tea or what milk he's drinking. And he did that for quite some time. And with the money that he gets, he saves because of not using sugar or purchasing sugar. He ends up traveling to Shirdi because he was not very well to do. And then he has the darshan of Baba. So the very first thing Baba, it seems, tells is he asks Shama to get a good cup of tea or milk, hot milk to him, and he instructs Shama, put a lot of sugar in that and give it to him. So that's what Baba orders that as. So he knows everything, of course. So that is the kind of fruit or result that has come up because of some penance, some kind of willpower exhibition. These things are all beautiful. As long as there is a connect between Swami and us and we are offering it to Swami, Swami is very happy. But in general, fasting, taking it up as a ritual, one has to be a little careful. If one has found it that this is what Swami, it would please Swami, Swami would be happy is what I feel. In fact, there are a lot more stories even in the Bhagavatam that talk about how fasting is not always recommended as a ritual. But as a spirituality, fasting is very good because Swami says food is not we take only from the mouth. Swami says food is what you take from your eyes, your ears, your nose, all the sense organs. And what that means is real fasting is sealing on desires. Keeping a tab on what we are trying to take in is the real fasting. One thing at a time, small doses, cut down the quantities, etc., etc. So we all understand this in a particular way. But there is a other aspect that also comes up, Prasanthi. You also talked about flowers, offering flowers, right? In fact, devotees were so lucky. In the earlier years when Swami used to give darshans, they used to make long garlands with flowers, fresh flowers, and then offer it, and Swami used to accept those garlands during darshan time. So that was the kind of time when devotees were so lucky. However, offering of flowers is something very strange, and I have a personal experience which I want to share, which goes back to the days when I was there, when I joined as a student in Swami's institution. It was one of those days I was fortunate to have Swami's blessing and grace that he called me along with my family for an interview. And since that was the very first interview that I was going to, I wanted to offer something to show my love through an offering. So what I did is that near the Ganesh temple gate, there was a flower vendor, and I purchased a rose flower. And I took it with me to the interview. We were seated in the interview room and I was seated at the feet of Swami. So Swami, after everybody settled down, Swami looked at me and then looked at the flower, and then he stretched his hand. I could offer it to Swami. And then Swami took the flower so lovingly, and Swami there was a little mock seriousness on Swami's face. He looked at me and he said, "Where did you get it?" And I said, "Swami, I purchased it." I purchased it near the gate. Swami said, "Purchased it? How much?" So I said, "Swami, it was 1 rupee. In those days, the rose was 1 rupee. And I said, "Swami, it's 1 rupee. Swami looked at me with a little sternness and he said, "That's waste of money." Waste of money. Because I was a student. It was not my money. I was not earning, right? So there's a wonderful message behind everything that Swami gives us. Swami said, then the most beautiful message came out. Swami said, "This is not the flower I need. Flowers that bloom in the morning and fade in the night. This is not the flower I need." And Swami pointed to my heart and said, "Give me the flower of your heart. Hridaya Pushpam," Swami said. "Give me Hridaya Pushpam." That's all. So this is the spiritual behind the ritual. The ritual is offering a flower to Swami. The spiritual is, can we offer our hearts along with the flower? So here we should understand very clearly, Swami is not saying don't think of buying flowers. Swami is not saying don't think of offering flowers. Anything we do, we need to do in certain limit. We all know that. And probably at that time, being a student, I was not supposed to spend money like that. However, in general, for people who can afford to buy flowers and offer it to Swami, beautiful. You can offer to whatever limit that you can. But when the offering is happening, can we, with each of the flower we offer, can we offer our heart? In fact, I've seen this, Prashant, many times when people do Astotram of Swami. I've seen that people take a flower, put it near their heart and offer it at Swami's feet. It's a beautiful sign, I feel. If that is giving the sense and feeling to us that this is the heart I'm offering to Swami, it's such a lovely, you converted the ritual into spiritual, is what I would say.
Very interesting. However, I have a question here because sometimes it happens with me also. Okay, I understand, there should be a lot of awareness when we are offering something. As Swami said, offer your heart. But sometimes what happens is, can this be seen as laziness? They say, okay, anyhow I am doing Namasmarana. I need not offer anything. I just think of Swami. That's my sadhana. When we ask people to go to bhajans and participate in bhajans, not required because I contemplate on Swami wherever I am. So these kind of questions do arise in my mind. Okay, do I offer or not? Or is it just thinking about Swami? And maybe for a second, maybe for a minute, even that is difficult sometimes. Sure. But is it seen as a sometimes laziness, or is it an excuse that I need not, but I am doing something which is higher than this? True. Your thoughts, because that's something which confuses me.
In fact, Prashant, what you are saying reflects what I felt many times, because I have been a lazy person many times. I know we tend to offer these excuses, and then we need to be pretty wary about our mind. I agree. And what Swami tells us, let us see. Swami says in his discourses that there's indeed somebody called Chitragupta. Now, who is this Chitragupta? According to mythology, he's a personal secretary of Yama, Lord Yama. Now, what do we mean by calling personal secretary? It seems he keeps accounts of everything that happens in our mind, in our lives. But what does this account really mean? What are they meaning? Swami said, Chitragupta is your conscience. It is Gupta. It is hidden. And it can know everything. That's why it is Chitragupta. It is hidden. Right? And talking about what is the intent with which we do anything, whether we talk it out to anybody or anybody in the world knows, Chitragupta knows. Because Chitragupta is always watching every step. Now, this is not to invoke any fear in anybody. This is to say that we open out more to Swami. Even our laziness, Swami says, offer your laziness also to me. Isn't it a very interesting proposition? Swami says, I can take everything that you give because that's what I come for, right? And offer your laziness. What does it mean to say offer laziness? It means that when we have agreed and accepted Swami as our absolute Lord, then we need to bend down in front of Swami and say that, Swami, I'm not able to come out of this. I'm going to stop all my trials in order to become more energetic or come out of laziness, because it's beyond me now. I'm giving it to you. I'm going to continue as I am. Now it's your duty and your responsibility to correct me. This is what it means by saying give up the laziness to Swami. And interestingly, Swami takes up. Swami creates a situation by which he will create a turnaround which you and I would have never been able to think about in our lives. That's for sure. So I'm very sure every devotee has enough examples and experiences to talk about like this, because it's a personal equation between Swami and every devotee. One more interesting thing, brother, I found is about something like singing. Kirtan is one of the most important aspects of devotion. And in Kali age, Swami says there's nothing better than Kirtan, Namasmarana. And Swami has so beautifully put it up, structured it in our entire organization that Kirtan is part of our life. You in your Samadhi, and then anybody can participate every day almost, or maybe at least once a week. Even if it was the COVID time, people were doing it online. Wonderful. Kirtan is always there. And Swami said you could do your family bhajans. The family can sit and do bhajans. You could do bhajans all by yourself. He says, Swami says, whether somebody is there or not, I am there. So, bhajan, Kirtan is such an integral aspect of devotion. Now, don't we see that even bhajan, Kirtan can become a ritual? That's the fun part of it. When we do it every day, it becomes ritual. Probably my mind is thinking of something else, and then bhajan is going on from my mouth. That's a very strange situation, but we all experience this. That's the truth. how much of time during one single bhajan, which might happen for 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes, how much of my mind is really fixed on Swami or on the words or the bhavam of the bhajan? How many times is it flying away to something else, like who is entering the bhajan hall, who is leaving, who is liking my bhajan maybe, or how is the talam rhythms going on, and so on and so forth. It can get very crazy when it comes to actually how our mind functions. That way, when we look at it, a mathematical question to ask is that out of 60 minutes of bhajans, how much time are we really focused on the bhajan or Swami? That's an interesting question to answer actually. In fact, I'm reminded of a great Kriti, Kirtana by Saint Tyagaraja. And everyone must be aware of that. Saint Tyagaraja was a wonderful devotee of Lord Rama who lived about 250 years back. And he has composed many kritis, about 700 plus kritis on Rama, most beautiful, which are the foundation for the Carnatic classical music today. Anyway, so in one of the kritis, I'm referring to the Sahitya Bhavam, I'm referring to the meaning that Saint Tyagaraja gives there. In one of the kritis, he says, Telisi Rama Chintana to Namamu Seyyave. Because he asks a question, this is in Telugu, but I'll translate. He says, Talapulanni nilipi nimushamaina tarakarupuni nijatatwamulanu telisi Rama chintanato namamu seyave o manasa. Sadguru Tyagaraja is saying, Talapulanni nilipi nimushamaina. If you are able to hold all your thoughts for even 1 minute, Talapulanni nilipi nimushamaina, Taraka Rupuni. And if you can visualize or meditate upon the form of Taraka Rupa, means someone who will enable you to cross over the ocean of samsara. Someone who is going to pass on liberation to you, who is actually the giver of liberation. If you are able to meditate on him, think about him even for 1 minute. Talapulanni nilipi nimishamaina, Tarakarupuni nijatattvamu. Which means, if you understand what you are singing, if you understand the insights, Swami jokes. He joked one time that those who don't know the language understand the language. They take up one of the Tyagaraja kritis, a different kriti, and they sing like this. He says, Nenu Santa Pakodilu Tinte. Santa Pakodilu means the pakodis that are purchased in the fair. Okay. But actually the meaning there is totally different. The word has been distorted because of lack of understanding. And Swami often talks about it and says, when you do not know what you are singing, it ends up being very farcical actually. That's what happens. So understanding what you're singing is very important. Understanding what you're chanting is very important. So for all of us, I think the message that Swami gives during bhajan is that understand what you're singing, and even the ragam and then even the talam, be very careful about why you are stretching. I had one experience like this. In fact, a couple of experiences, but I'll limit it to one experience. There was one Shyamashastri Kriti that I got an opportunity to present in front of Swami. I'm not a great classical musician. I'm not a very trained musician. I sing more out of what I've heard, and then because it gives me joy. Swami fortunately gave me some opportunity. I don't know why, but he gave an opportunity for me to present a few songs in front of him. So this happened in Vrindavan, in Trai Vrindavan, where Swami that day said, sing a song. And then there was the University Grants Commission chairman there. There were a lot of students and a lot of faculty. Swami said, sing a song. So I started off a song. It was a Shyamashastri Kriti. Swami was listening and he was putting talam. Okay. And that in that Kriti, in the Charanam, it is a Kriti that goes like this. Karuna chudu ninu nammina vadu gada. It's in Sri Ragam, in a Ragam called Sri Ragam. In the Charanam, the words go like this. Syama Krishna Paripalini Sulini Sama Jagamana Kundaradana Tamasambikanu Seyakana Parita. Like this, I was extending it, stretching the ragam. It is raw, it is a mistake. Usually, the stretch is done because that's the way that singer sang, whom I heard. And I was repeating it. Swami stopped me. While I was doing this stretch, Swami stopped me. And he said, why are you stretching like that? Swami asked. Then I said, Swami, that's the way I heard, that's the way I'm repeating. Swami said, that's wrong. Understand what you're singing. He said, just what is the Sahityam there? What is the lyric there? Swami asked. The lyric is that Tamasambikanu cheyaka na paritapamulanu. In the paritapamulanu, in Telugu, there is one ta, which is one extension. Ta is one extension. But what was I doing? I was taking advantage of that extension, and I was going not just 2 times. I was going ta. I was going on, which is wrong. Swami said, don't do that unnecessarily. And then he gave the most beautiful saying in Telugu. He said, Ragam ekku avute rogam avutundira. Swami said, if you stretch the ragam unnecessarily, it's a disease. It's a disease. Rogam is disease. Ragam is a tune. Ragam has another meaning. This is actually a pun that Swami used, because ragam also means attachment. So too much attached to our own way of singing, too much attached to what we think we know, and then we start exhibiting it. Swami said that is a disease. And then he said, you can't sing like that. I had some common sense that Swami gave at that time, and I looked at Swami and said, Swami, you please tell me how this should be sung. I asked Swami. So Swami sang it, and then he had shown. He said that this is how we can simply say, Tamasambikanu seyakana paritapamulanu ika. Give a gap for the talam, because you are stretching because you want talam. Right? You want. So, paritapamulanu ika. Pariharinchi. That's what Swami sang it as. We are all so blessed because the Lord Almighty is singing and showing us how a kriti should be sung. He has sung so many bhajans, and then he had shown us how they should be sung. I think we have to just follow that. Ritual it becomes when we mechanically go about and then don't even pay our attention while singing. But if every bhajan, if we can just focus on Swami, there are many occasions, Prashant, where children were lost in they were just following, they were not singing, but they had such beautiful Swami. One of the professors there, in fact, his interview came on Radio Sai, and then he was telling that once when he was a student, he was sitting there. Swami went away somewhere. He was not sitting in the bhajan hall when the bhajan was happening. He went for a trip to hospital or somewhere. So they all thought that it will take at least 30 minutes for Swami to come back. And then he was some bhajan was going on Krishna, and then he was standing there and then visualizing Swami as Krishna. And it was that time when sand was there outside in Prasanthi Nilayam. And then so Swami used to stand near that central. There was one round piece there. Swami used to stand there and then keep moving a little bit here and there beautifully, like a Krishna. He was visualizing all that, it seems. And then suddenly he felt that somebody was standing in front of him. He could feel it. He opened his eyes and he finds Swami. And Swami was exactly standing the way he was visualizing and moving here and there. This is Swami. Swami will know each and every thought that is going on in our mind. So offering that to Swami means that we should not approach even Kirtan or Bhajan as a ritual. If we have to sanctify it as a spiritual aspect is what I feel.
Very interesting, wonderful message given by Swami. He is the master of masters.
Right.
I know sometimes we mindlessly get trapped into, doing rituals without knowing what we are doing. Quickly, I'll share my experience because I echo with whatever you were saying.
Right.
I like performing puja every day in the morning, the Deeparadhana, and then completing the Aarti. Then over a period of time, I have seen that, especially when I get delayed, when I have to rush somewhere, I just go, do the Deeparadhana and do Aarti. And if I have a little less time, then the Aarti becomes even more faster. And over a period of time, I've seen that, faster and faster, and the fastest Aarti also I've done.
Right.
And every time, when I come back and see, okay, I have done my things. It's like a checklist. Tuck, I feel, I did my puja. But when I just think back about what I've done, I never felt happy about it. Then I said, why am I getting trapped into it? Is it something which I need to... I know there is some kind of accomplishment, as you said, the difference.
Right.
Putting a tick box saying that I have done that.
Right.
Is that what I'm looking for? Then I said, the best, person to, share your thoughts or confide is Swami. Then I went to Swami and said, Swami, I like puja, but this is what I'm getting into. So let me do this. Whenever if I have to rush somewhere, all I'll do is I'll not get into this ritual, but stand in front of you and just visualize you for a minute or two.
Right.
And as you rightly said, what I experienced is when I stand there and visualize Swami or look at Swami for a minute or so, I start with accomplishment.
Right.
And I end with accomplishment. So I think that gives me immense joy, throughout the day. So I understand, completely and agree with what you're saying. I think being mindful of what we are doing while we are doing is the most important thing.
Absolutely. In fact, there are probably a few more thoughts that we need to discuss in this forum. The way actually we conduct and perform the rituals during festivals and important occasions. So shall we just go into that and then see what it means? Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So world over, festivals are one occasion where a lot of ritual is involved. And there are many more special occasions like yajnams are done, or sanctification of aspects, etc. But let's look at some festivals, and then for this time being, I would focus on one or two festivals which come up in our Indian context. So we have many of them. We have Ganesh Chavati. And then most of you know that there's a collection of all the leaves and then the flowers, and then worship is done to Lord Ganesha by the entire family. Then they read out 4 to 5 stories about Ganesha, and which are very insightful in their own way. So understanding the meanings or insights into the stories is a great way, for example, to understand who is Ganesha. So this can be done too. In a different occasion, probably we can discuss about that. We have Dasara. Swami himself has started the grand yajna that goes on for about 9-10 days during the Navratri. And Dasara is a great way to remember how the evil has been come over and won over by the goodness in each one of us. And so whether you call it Ma Durga or whether you call it Rama's victory over Ravana, it always shows the positive over negative. So again, Dasara is a great occasion. We have Sankranti, which talks about hope and optimism coming into life with the sunlight coming, and then the Dakshinayanam is over with the winters having gone, and then the harvest season is come up, and everybody is so happy. The sun is coming up, and there is plenty that comes into the home of the farmer with all the produce that has come, and there is something to spend. They talk about a lot of charity that people need to do from what they have produced, etc. So again, there's a lot of social and spiritual element and meaning in Sankranti. Of course, we have Diwali, about which we will discuss a little bit right now. Deepavali is a great festival. And Swami's birthday itself, which is a great festival, greatest of the festivals for all of us. So probably about these two, we can have a little conversation. Prashant, what do you think?
Absolutely. In fact, when it comes to festivals, people look forward for it, and people wait, and look at the calendar when the festival is falling on which date, so that they get prepared. There's a lot of joy around. There's a lot of families come together, celebrate.
Yes.
And if you're talking about Deepavali, these days, this is something I think personally I need to get clarity, and there might be a lot of people who are looking for clarity on Deepavali, because in the recent times, if you have come across, there are a lot of debates, discussions, especially about the ritual performed on Deepavali day. Night, that bursting of crackers, and there is a section of people, they say, no, this is not at all part of Deepavali, and why are you doing it mindlessly? Already we have pollution and you're contributing more. So the question comes in, and there is a segment of people who say, no, this has been a tradition. We have been following this for ages, 10,000 years, 7,000 years, since Rama's days, and we have to continue this tradition. So I'm just curious to know, first of all, bursting crackers as a celebration, your take on it. Is it a ritual? If we have to do it, how it has to be done? Are we missing out something while celebrating Diwali?
Yes.
Can you throw some light on it, on the Festival of Lights?
My 2 cents, and then of course for us, Deepavali is the festival of lights, and the actual light can be given to us only by Swami. So let us look at what Swami says. In fact, Swami has allowed Deepavali to be performed in his presence. Students regularly perform Deepavali. Do a little bit of firecrackers being burst also. More of light, less of sound, I would say. So that's an indication by itself when we look at it as a ritual, because I think there is a lot more harm that comes sort of creating more sound is what I feel. A lot of animals are actually quite hurt by this entire thing of a sound thing. But some sound is okay, but light. Essentially, it's my understanding, Prashant, about the bursting of crackers. The actual significance of Deepavali is only lighting a lamp. It's light. Deepavali, Deepam is light. And of course, any Deepam or any light is a significator of the inner light or Gnana Jyoti. So, since Narakasura, who was supposed to be the evil in human beings, Naraka Asura, the Asura or the Rakshasa, the evil that is there within every Nara, Asura, that person is slayed. That person is slayed or removed, and therefore light comes up. So the Gnana Jyoti comes up because the darkness of the Asura is gone away. That's the symbolism. And in order to do that, the lights are lit outside. Lamps are lit. And lamp is a great thing because lamp is the only thing which without it reducing, it can create more light. And you can light up another lamp from one lamp. So that's the greatest aspect of a lamp. Second thing Swami said is that lamp is always something that goes urdhva gati or goes up, doesn't go down. And it enables other things and then helps you to see what is the day. So that's the reason why Swami also gives Jyoti meditation. Swami's way of meditation is Jyoti meditation. So Jyoti has its own, that way we all know that Deepavali is completely the festival of lights. However, coming to the crackers part, because this can get controversial in today's context. Crackers part, I think if we go by what Swami says, help ever, hurt never. What do we see from this? Too much of inconvenience caused to others because of us is often something that Swami writes and says, don't do it. Now, in the name of, you call it Diwali or Holi, whatever might be the festival, we take out processions and then we hurt others and we cause inconvenience to public. Swami would never endorse this, is my feeling. It is Swami would never endorse this. Any festival, any celebration is always endorsed by Swami. Because celebration is what makes us socially connected. It makes us feel connected to Swami. It gives us a moments of happiness and joy. And that's where life should be. Life should be a celebration. So that Swami completely endorses. But what is that Swami doesn't endorse? I feel we should be very careful. Specifically to the bursting of crackers, I feel there are 2-3 things that are happening. The costs have escalated like anything. And children particularly who are so enamored, looking at others fire some crackers, everybody goes and then pesters their parents to buy more and more. And today, the exorbitant costs that come up. And then probably there are more times where 50% or 60% of a parent's monthly earnings get into purchasing of crackers. Now, it is a nightmare probably for the parent to actually that there's a Diwali coming up. But then the child is asking. And child is asking because everybody else is doing. This crazy aspect of imitating others and imitating everybody is causing us this problem, actually. But if more light and more wisdom can come through our Balvikas and then to children know, and more emphasis is done even in our Balvikas and EHV programs that it is a festival of light. Of course, there is one little significance that when a firecracker, when a bursting is done, what comes out is light also. So that shows indeed shows the spontaneity of how light comes up, and it is great too. But the accompanying sound can be a little deafening most of the times, and everybody doing it at the same time. Now the auxiliary thoughts I feel, brother, about the pollution getting a little control, even because of this pollution, certain microorganisms which are bad for human race, the viruses and all dying and all, I think they are auxiliary things. In the face of the amount of pollution we otherwise create in 364 days, this is nothing. We better focus on what we need to do in terms of controlling that pollution rather than trying to say that because of this certain bacteria are dying. So we have to be a little careful in the logic we use, I feel. Overall, I feel, consider the price, consider the sound, deafening sounds, and then whatever it causes, going more towards light, and then anything that creates light is more beautiful than creating more of sound is what I feel. I know it might look like a little superficial argument for what we have started, but I think there is a lot of spirituality involved in that for the ritual. That's the reason why I'm talking like that. So that's my take on that.
Interesting. Can you also throw some light on the spirit and significance of Deepavali and how it should be celebrated?
Yeah, so spirit and significance is, I think the first thing is that individual feeling that from today, There is more light in me, therefore I need to leave out some of the evil thoughts that I have. And that's what Swami always said. Give up all your old vices, old habits and old way of thinking. Naraka Chaturdasi. And then you started a new day. Amavasya is gone with Deepavali. And a new 15 days Paksham is starting lunar cycle where you are only progressing towards Paurnami, which means your mind is going to become complete with God's thought. So this is all the symbolic aspect of Deepavali. And since it's a Amavasya in general where no light is there, what you're going to do as a diya here is going to provide more light to the world. So diya is something so beautiful. Somebody said, if you put it on the doorway, near the doorway, it tends to give light inside as well as outside. Swami said, Namam is like that. It's like a diya. When you put it on your lips, it tends to give light inside and outside. That is inside the body and outside to the world. So these are all the kind of symbolisms that Swami has given so many times. And the other important sociological symbolism is family coming together and being happy. It's very important that family has to go. Swami says family that comes together but prays together. And so therefore, remembering Swami on that day, doesn't it become more, doesn't it make the ritual more spiritual? For example, many people do perform the Lakshmi puja very ardently on that day. But Lakshmi, how are we looking at Lakshmi? Probably my end, there my sense of accomplishment is creating more money for myself, which is okay. That's a desire. But then are we able to see that true Lakshmi is Swami? Swami is the prosperity that you and I have in our life right now. Where even if something goes away completely from my life, all money and everything, Swami is still there. Who can take away Swami from my life? He is the real Lakshmi. He is the real Aishwaryam. He is the Ishwari Tattvam. So this kind of thinking process, if it can be done by the elders as well as passed on to youngsters on that day, I think probably there's a festival is sanctified, is what I feel.
Absolutely right. Great. In fact, all the Sai Bandhus also look forward for November 23rd, Swami's birthday. So, can you share your experiences?
My thought, my experience, Prashant, is that being in Swami's presence on Swami's birthday is totally something different. We all might be able to do that. Now the physical opportunity is not there for most of the people. However, feeling Swami in our heart on that day is given to everyone in this world. Millions and millions of devotees can feel Swami in their heart, and they do feel. We are very sure they feel. So how is birthday to be celebrated? Is the birth of Swami in the heart. That's what it means actually. Swami said very clearly. And happiness comes in us because of Swami's birth, and therefore it's called happy birthday. Whenever we went and wished Swami happy birthday, Swami said, you need not wish me happiness. Swami said, I wish you get some happiness in your life. So how do we get happiness in our lives, your life and my life? Swami said, let me be born in your Hrudayam, in your heart. And that day happiness is born in your life. And so Swami's birthday is not necessarily November 23rd that way. It can be any day when Swami is born in the heart. Point number one. Second thing, of course, ritual is there. We all cut cakes for Swami. Swami, happy birthday to you, and we cut cakes, right? So beautiful, cutting cake. But what is this cutting cake? What does it symbolize? Cake is a sweet. And it is divided between everybody. Not one person is eating all the cake. When it is cut, it is divided to everybody who's present. This is what Swami is telling. Make your life sweet and then distribute yourself and share yourself with everybody. This is the symbolic meaning of cake cutting. So like that, when we look at the symbolism of each of the aspects, the spiritual behind the ritual, I think probably some of us, Swami might give the opportunity that we might be able to celebrate Swami's birthday more than once in a year, is what I feel. Maybe many more times we might be able to celebrate whenever we are doing that. You go and then do a real service which Swami likes, and Swami, you know in your heart that Swami likes it. Swami is liking it. Your birthday is happening in your life, is what I feel.
Wonderful, wonderful. I hope and pray that on that auspicious day, Swami blossoms in our heart and gives that happiness, and we carry that happiness throughout the year and look forward for the next birthday.
Next birthday. And as we conclude, Prashant, what I feel, what we would like to really offer at Swami's feet is that all this conversation is not any kind of attempt to say that one should not resort to rituals. Rituals are, of course, part of our life, whether it be worship rituals, whether it is any other thing that we do, because everything that we do in our life actually has become a ritual. But how do we transforming the ritual to spiritual is the whole focus of this conversation. And the focus, essentially, if we have to have a takeaway, it means that we need to look at the essence. In fact, in one of the Chinnakathas that Swami has given, Swami so beautifully puts it that there was this person who took his lunch bag from his home and he set out on a journey. It was a long journey for the day. He has to go through the forest and all. So he was carrying this and he carried enough food for himself. And as he was taking it, this happened many years ago, so there were no hotels, etc. So he was carrying it. He was very, very tired because he was carrying a big load. And somewhere he stopped because of the tiredness. Otherwise, he would have probably stopped there for lunch at about, say, in the midday. But he stopped about an hour or 1 hour and a half before. And then he was very tired. He was already feeling very hungry. And then he was thinking, now what should I do? And then now he said, okay, the food is there and then I had to eat. So he started eating food and then he ended up eating the entire food. Something interesting happened. Swami says, now he grew in his energy. New vigor has come because he ate the food. And he got up and then he started traveling. Very interestingly, the travel became lighter because the load of the food was reduced. The Swami asked the question, where did the load go? The load which was there on his shoulder now went into his body. In a technical sense, he was carrying the load, but it only gave him more energy. And Swami seals the meaning here, saying that the knowledge and all the understanding we have about everything that we discuss like this is like that load you are carrying on your shoulder. Instead of going on talking about it, parading it to the world, sit down, imbibe it, ingest it, make it part of your life and see what new energy it gives you on this path and journey called spiritual path. And he says your step is going to be faster. So all this we talk about as the spirituality behind rituality, I think Swami intends that we get it in our life. We start small, into smaller rituals, we get it into that. We do an Astottaram, try to focus on at least a few namas and then connect to Swami. We do one bhajan, try to connect to Swami. We do a service, try to visualize Swami in them and then look at it as an opportunity that Swami is giving rather than thinking that I am giving something to them, etc., etc. When we weave Swami into everything that we do, I think spirituality is obviously happening. And then whatever we do, it might look like ritual to the world, but it is spiritual. So with that understanding, we would like to, me and then Prashant, we'd like to bring this conversation to an end here and then offer it at the Divine Lotus feet. There could be a lot that has come from our minds, which probably again because they're not really mature to the extent that Swami wants. Sometimes we could have made some mistakes. So if we made any mistakes in this entire conversation, we pray to Swami that he pardon us and forgive us for that. But if there are some salient points which are useful for anybody who's looking at this video, it is all Swami's grace that he enabled us to discuss about this point today. So with this few lines, we end it here. And we wish the best of the festive season greetings to each one out there, all the devotees of Swami. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Jai Sai Ram.